Hi, it's Anthony Gaddy here, and in this part 2 of the niche selection series, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make it really easy for you to understand a good niche versus a bad one by giving you some examples, and then I'm going to make it even easier for you to understand when you've got a good niche. In other words, what are the specific criteria that a good niche needs to meet in order for you to say, yep, this is a good one in terms of my marketing. This is actually going to make all of my marketing a lot easier. Let's jump right in. So here's some brilliant examples versus some not so good examples. Brilliant examples. People who've scored a hole-in-one in golf. Very easy to understand. It's black and white. You know, you're either talking to someone who's in that category or they're not in that category. And you can track and trace them through the golf clubs. Now here's an interesting one. I saw people who had written a book. These were physiotherapists who wrote a book for amputees who want physio rehabilitation. Amputees represent 0.02% of the population, but they're extremely track and traceable. Unless some crazy person has performed an amputation at home by themselves without a surgeon or a hospital, which is not very likely, every other person who fits into that category is extremely discernible and track and traceable. I'll keep using those terms. CEOs of the top 100 companies. Easy to define, easy to find, easy to source. Here are some examples that are not so good in terms of niche selection. If we said any small business, so if I said to you, who do you service, who do you want to service, and you said any small business, well, sure, a business is either small or it's large, but how small is small? And more than that, there are so many small businesses. How do you know where to go looking for them, where to find them? So the key question is, how can you not be as broad as this? All businesses who are experiencing stress. And what you want to do is you want to narrow down the field so that the field that you're going for is about an inch wide, not a mile wide, but then you want to go a mile deep. So as an overall theme for niche selection, I'll say that again, you want to focus your efforts 1 inch wide and then an absolute mile deep. You want to dominate the niche or the specific niches that you decide to target. I'm going to share with you here the 5 criteria for ideal niches. You'll probably notice I've been starting to cover these patterns already. The first one is the niche's got to be distinguishable. So if you name a niche, if you name a specific area or category of businesses that and or people that you want to go after, you have to be able to distinguish that group from the rest of the population, from the rest of the businesses that might be in the country. So there must be a very distinguishable, discernible group of people or businesses that have particular characteristics that separate them from all the others. Next one is, ideally, you've got to have services, or even better than that, your differentiators have got to be able to solve their problems. So if I take it back to the example that we were talking about, amputees who are looking for rehabilitation, physio rehabilitation, is a very distinguishable group of people. But if I don't have the skills to provide that kind of physio, then I don't have a skill, let alone a differentiator that can solve their problems. So you must be sure that you've got skills and services, or better than that, differentiators, that can actually solve the niche's problems. Next key one is they've got to be accessible. It's all very well to define a particular group, but somehow you've got to be able to access them. I've kept using the words track and traceable. The example was the hole-in-one golf players. Very accessible. How are they accessible? Well, their names appear on lists, and the lists are owned by the golf clubs. These people are now in some way accessible. Next key criteria is they've got to be profitable. So if you come up with a particular niche, you've got to be able to do some research and to test it. And that particular niche has to be profitable. In other words, if you can secure business within that niche, will it be profitable business for you? And that's very closely linked to the final criteria, which is sufficient volume. So the question we're asking here is, if you secure a reasonable proportion of the people or businesses in that particular niche, are there enough of them in the niche so that if you actually secure a reasonable volume, you'll be doing good business and it'll be profitable for you? Those are 5 key criteria. I share this with you so you can get your head around it, But don't worry, we've got a step-by-step system in the niche selection workbook that will actually cover off these questions.